Hey there, welcome to the Insight Cafe. My name is Nikon Gormley. I'm your host. And today, I have my dear friend, Steve Sharpley. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Hey, Nikon. Always great to see you and have conversations with you. And so I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to just another conversation. Yeah.
So, where are you in the world today?
I am in the only landlocked country in Southeast Asia. So a little country called Laos,
And
right next to Thailand.
where in Laos?
I'm in the capital of Vientiane.
Nice.
Um,
So,
a relatively small capital.
for context, Laos is
Sorry,
just
say
about
again.
for context, Laos is about an hour away from Bangkok by flight.
An hour
Uh,
flight. Yeah, it
yeah.
is. Yeah, it's Bangkok's the closest other capital, although you've got Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi in Vietnam. You've got um, Phnom Penh, Cambodia. They're all very, very close. It's just right in the middle.
Great. So I'm really happy you're here today to talk about our title is Wisdom Always Walks with Us. But before we get into that, I really want to share your bio because I think you have such an incredible story. And then we're going to ask you about your story. So Steve Sharpley is a seasoned transformative coach and consultant in private practice. Steve has over 25 years of experience dedicated to unlocking human potential for individuals, teams, and businesses. You work with leaders and startups, larger SMEs, and many blue chip clients around the world. You worked with BP, British Airways, Cisco Systems, Citigroup, Dell, EA, Jaguar, Frito, and Team GB. And the list goes on and on and on. So, and your work is based on sharing the principles behind the human experience and pointing people to actualize their own innate wisdom. And you're also the author of the book, Success is a Mind Game, improving consistency and results in business and golf. So again, welcome to the show.
Keep on. So again,
So I'd like to kick off our conversation by asking you, like, what's your story? How did you get here? How did you come across these principles that started this path?
okay, great question. It could be a very long answer. Um, but I guess where it started is I've known since I was in my early 20s that I had something in me that's been guiding my life. I'd call it intuition or a sense. And it kicked off when in my teens, I just didn't see much of a future for me. I was literally like, there's internally screaming out, there's got to be more to life than this. And then things started showing up. I started noticing different people in York, where I come from in Northern England, from different countries. And a number stood out from the US. And I thought, who are these aliens? Literally, they were so different. Speak to anybody, they were friendly, they had confidence like you couldn't believe. They're really interesting, positive. And so I'd been out of the country once in Spain for 2 weeks before that. And I decided I went to the States for 2 months with a one-way ticket. And I looked up few of these people, and I spent 2 months traveling around the US looking for their secret. What is their secret? And I had a great time. Didn't find their secret. Came back and decided almost straight away that I was going to go back the next year to the West Coast. And so I did that, traveled around. I had a wedding to go to in Seattle, so I had kind of focal point for it as well. And had a fantastic time, different kind of experience, met some great people again. And I had one of those sliding door moments. I was in Seattle and do I go north to Vancouver as planned, or I'd met someone down in San Francisco, do I go south? So I went left and went south back down there and ended my trip there. After going back to the UK from that trip, I just knew I had to go back. And I had an opportunity. I met a couple of people who say, come on, you can get a job. I was an apprentice engineer at the time, very lowly trade kind of job, my family background. And I just thought, well, I'm going. I've got nothing to lose. And they said, well, you've got a job 6.5 years. It doesn't matter. I'm going. I'm going to go and be living in Silicon Valley. Who knows what might happen? So I left. I quit. Everyone thought I was crazy. And it worked out really well. 5 within 5 to 10 months, I was earning multiples of what I've been earning in the UK. And I ended up living in the States for 10 years and had a great time. But towards the end, something in me was saying, you know what, I want to go back. There's certain things that were not quite sitting right for me. And I decided, you know, I want to see if I can do it over in the UK and be back around my family. Because back in those days, you know, we're talking about the 80s, you know, it was rotary phones, or maybe they had punch phones online, fixed line, no answering machines. It was really difficult for communication. And I went back, again, knowing, I just had that feeling it's the right thing to do. There's no question. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I just know it feels right. Again, it felt like I was being guided. It was the right thing to do. So I went back and I worked in corporate again. And then in the 30s, I decided what really interests me was people, because I had no clue about people, how we functioned, why people were so different, why they saw the world different the way I did. And so I started going, I went to do like a degree in psychology after engineering initially. At the end, and then I went to do a master's. And again, at the end of my master's, I was trying to come up with a project for my research for it. And it was a master's in change with individuals or groups and organizations. And I was bored. I just couldn't get any interest in any of the ideas. I used to work on a ropes course, facilitating teams and leaders and individuals. And I was looking at something like that. And then I went to look, I knew I wanted to change places where I was living. So I went to talk to somebody. There was this woman that I didn't want to go to the place where that she had, but we hit it off. And she said, after a while, she said, you know what? When she found out what I was doing, and she said, you should come and talk to my MD. I think you guys would get on. You're interested in the consultant's job. So I talked to him on the phone next week. I went and interviewed officially with him the week after and talked to some other people. A week later, they offered me a job. So I thought, well, I can maybe go back and do my dissertation. I wasn't that bothered about it. And this was a leadership and change consultancy, bespoke, niche. And that's where I started working in places like Jaguar in the UK and some other big companies. And they used to have these big, I went to training in the US, and then you had big annual meetings with the whole company, maybe 100 people. And the first one of those I went to, George Pransky came in and talked, one of the real old original guys. And I'd just been studying within my master's all the traditional schools of psychology and how to work with change, whether it was psychodynamics, CBT, counseling, you name it, and actually how to facilitate and learn it, go through it ourselves. But something he's talked about, he wasn't talking explicitly about the principles, but something just felt right. It's like he's talking sense, and I just knew instantly I need to find something what that's really about. Went back and was working in the UK again, and the company didn't use principles explicitly in the work, but kind of in a way that helped people quieten their mind and be able to reflect more on what they were experiencing and learning and understanding how our realities are created. And that's what we took in, like with Jaguar, all the way from the MD at the top, all the way through down into the shop floor. And then I got made redundant. They went through a merger that didn't work. I was on the fourth cut. I thought I'd missed it, even though I was a rookie. And I just kind of accepted it. It was like, wow, this is not what I expected. But I was just so grateful for what I'd learned at that company and how I changed. I was far more flexible. I was easygoing. I didn't get stressed out. I connected with people better. I could deal with change just on a spin. And I went back into my office after learning about it and just typed up a letter of appreciation, gratitude to the key people in the business and everyone, because that's how I felt. But I thought that's going to change. After a while, I'm going to start getting bummed out because this was like my dream job I dreamed about for almost a decade. But I never did. So I decided I was going to research the principles for my dissertation. And again, it just felt right. And so I spent like a year traveling around the States as part of my own journey. To understand the three principles that really explain our experience moment to moment and everybody. So I'm seeing it as a unifying understanding, because there's lots of different approaches, but this explains how we all function in exactly the same way. Doesn't matter where we're from, how old we are, what our backgrounds are. It explains everything and helps us have a richer, calmer experience and easier experience in life and get more done effortlessly. And so I went researching this and spent time, like there weren't many places where it was being used in industry or businesses at the time. I went and talked to the owner of a 9-store hairdressing salon chain, where he wanted his people just to be happy because he knew, or he felt that his clients would be happier in there and to keep coming back and his business would grow. And that's exactly what happened. But I went into homeless shelters. I went into domestic abuse class for guys being taught by 2 women, and it was court mandated. The guys were ordered to be there as part of their sentencing judgment, and they had to pay for it themselves. I went around a whole community transformation, rode on the community policeman's in his squad car, going around and talking to the people. And they got the residents that got rid of the drug addicts and the pushers and everything, transformed the place. But the biggest one was 9/11. By this time, you can't help be around this and hearing people's stories and get affected by it. But I was in 9/11. What turned out to be 9/11. I was meant to be going into a prison in Fremont with Kathy Casey and Amy Chen Mills, 2 early people who are involved in the principles. And then 9/11 happened, and we were all, as everybody else, just glued to the TV and aghast and horrified. And we were, Amy and I were, Kathy and I were in contact. She couldn't get in touch. I talked to Amy later on, and she's, look, we can't, let's just go over there in the afternoon. So we went in, we were let in. The afternoon class came because we were in there. And then the morning class hadn't had a class with Kathy came and joined us. So we had like 50 people in orange boiler suits, hardened criminals who'd been exposed to the principles, and we were having a conversation about them, and they were sharing about how it had changed their lives. And you could see they were changed people. Just the way they spoke, they were not speaking like you'd imagine prisoners to be speaking. There wasn't an energy there. There was a lot of caring and really deep listening to each other, and gratitude for what they've been learning. This one guy said, basically, and this really hit me. He says, I know now that if I hadn't believed the thinking I'd been having at the time when I robbed that, whatever the robbery had done, I wouldn't be in here anymore. I didn't realize I didn't have to act on all the thoughts that came into my head. And that just like, wow, he was almost in tears, and I was. It was just like, it's so profound and deep. And he says, I'm never coming back. I've got to stay in here for a number of years more. I did wrong, but I'm never coming back. And it was those kind of things that really hit me. But ultimately, I was fortunate. I went to 2 or 3 of Sid Banks's um, retreats or conferences, who had this epiphany about the principles back in '73. And then I went to have 4-day one-on-one coaching with George and Linda Prensky and their nephew, Aaron Turner. And that's when my life was really spun around. I had a few days coaching, and it was funny. I had the afternoon off, and I heard about a mountaintop you can have an amazing sunset experience, and I wanted to go driving up the coast there for a while, and I wanted to get to the coast as quick as I could. So I'm driving, and I got pulled. I just come out of a coaching session, really calm and getting some insights about the principles and how my thinking was ruling my life. On the way to the coast, like 10 minutes out of the session, I got pulled over for speeding. I just automatically gone back into my hurry up mode and wanted to get there, and hadn't realized. Fortunately, the woman policeman let me off. But it's like a real wake up. Wow, how I just got caught up again. So I calmed down and went for a great drive. I spent the weekend, the afternoon, imagining what this sunset was going to be like. I had it pictured. It was going to be all by myself. It was perfect. The Cascade Mountains were behind with the snow caps, and there was tulips all over the valley, because that's their tulip capital of the world up there. And eventually, at the end of the afternoon, I got onto the island. I found the trail, which is not marked. Drove up, car park, small car park, and there was a car already there. And my heart went, oh, there goes my solo sunset. Well, I'll look around the other places. So I looked around, but they had the best place. Oh, well. And then I'm just kind of lamenting my non-solo sunset experience. And I heard another engine coming up the trail that I'd just driven up. And a transit van pulled up, doors flung open, and like 15 students, college kids, piled out, running around, shouting, screaming, having a great time. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not what I was expecting or looking forward to. And I was just like, stunned, and my feeling levels were kept going down and down. I think this is not it. But after about 10 minutes, they dived back in the van, and the van reversed and went back down the hill. And I'm just like, what? So the other couple saw we were both having a similar kind of experience again. They come over, and so I went over. 2 nice couples, great spread of a picnic, nice wine on ice. We had a great time. And it was a really nice sunset in the end. And I didn't think much more of it. Fast forward to the next morning, I'm in the shower, and I started reflecting on what had happened. I suddenly saw how my thinking had almost destroyed that experience. My thinking had gone down just by what my thinking was about what was going on, and it wasn't what I hoped it would be or expected it to be, had planned it to be, could see it was going to be. And in that moment, I had this really deep insight and profound insight where I realized how many times in my life I made the experience less than it could have been by my thinking, because it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to be, could be, ought to be, planned to be, should have been, all those expectations. And I literally started crying in that shower. I mean, it was like a lightning bolt had gone all the way down through me. And that's like one of those moments when you have something like that, your life is never the same. There's no going back, because you see something so profoundly different. And I realized in that moment how it doesn't matter what is going on around me, I can be at peace, calm, relaxed, content anywhere. The only thing that takes that away from it is my own thinking. And so from that point, that changed my life. I've been living from them, informed by them, and guided by them ever since, which is almost 25 years ago. And it's, back in those days, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't social media, there wasn't YouTube. So it was, if anyone came over there, landlines, it wasn't as easy to communicate with people. So I always felt a little bit on my own, and I was just going into corporates. I started my own consultancy, and started going into the bigger companies, and started experimenting how I could bring this into my leadership coaching and trainings I was doing for team development, leadership development, to help them see this secret of how life really works. And that's what I did. That's why I started doing it. And it's like once I got this understanding of the principles, and it keeps deepening. We've talked about this, how I see it now as like having an evergreen property of properties, that there's always something new to see. There's always something new that helps us see something deeper, or in a better, higher perspective, that enables things, extra things, new things to happen, or happen easier, and more magic to happen in life. And that's that evergreen quality. And it's through that process that I've come to see that what guides us, we have access. It allows us to get access to a level of intelligence and wisdom that is with us all the time. And so, and looking back, it's helped me see that, okay, I might have called my inner guide, my intuition, a sense. It just felt right. And okay, it's like, it's just what I've got to do. Often out of the blue, or different to other people, completely opposite to other people would think, or I thought before, but it just felt right. Now I can see that wisdom is always with us. And more than that, it's like wisdom is part of us. The core principle of mine is like, it's the energy of everything in the universe, everything in life, at every level of the atom in our body, there's 99% of it is energy. Space is not physical. And that energy is that wisdom, that divine intelligence that's separate from. It's part. It fuels us. It powers us. It gives us the energy. It gives us energy for our mind and our intellect. But that is our human part. This is a deeper level of divine energy and experience that we have access to. And so it's always with us. The wisdom is, we never separate from it. And when people start to get that, and they start to have their own insights, things that occur to them, we just have a thought out of the blue, then we get solutions and ideas that can really make a difference. Our relationships change. People collaborate better. They get innovative solutions to problems. And it comes without effort, because it just comes to us. We don't have to search for it. We don't have to strive for it. Once we learn how to be in this clearer, calmer state and connection, then we access it. That wisdom is always there, waiting to be heard. So that was a kind of a long answer. They can't, but this is for me one of the real gifts. It's like I did a lot of personal development workshops before my master's degree, and over 15 years. ever since I learned about the principles, I started living from them, I've never thought about doing anything else. Don't need to, because every day some new learning, some new insight can come that keeps that ongoing, evolving nature of life present.
Well, that was a great podcast. Thank you for coming. Really, thank you for sharing your story. And I was right there with you as you were describing the peaks and valleys of your story. And one of the insights I had as you were sharing your story is, every time somebody comes on this podcast and I ask them the story, everybody's story is, it's never linear. It's never from point A to point B to point C. It's always, up, down, this way. And that I realize that's just the nature of life, you know. And I think just knowing that is so, I think, soothing to know that, wherever you think you are in life, it's just part of a bigger picture of a grand adventure. And it's really interesting, as you were talking, I was like, I want to ask him what wisdom is, and you answered it about the nature of wisdom as you were sharing that, how it's always with us. And I'd like to ask you, given the title of our podcast today is Wisdom Always Walks with Us. So I think, to me, the first time I heard about wisdom, I understood it as something I need to tap into, something I need to connect to, and then it's like Wi-Fi, right? And then when you started to talk about, wisdom always walks with us, it shifted something in me, in realizing that my adventure, I'm not alone, because oftentimes I do feel alone, and I think many people feel alone in their journey as they're overcoming challenges, or they're dealing with big opportunities that fall in their lap. I'd like for you to talk to what it means when you say wisdom always walks with us.
Okay. When when this first came to me, um, in the way I understand it now, um, I do a daily walk, which includes a garden that you know about. And um, I found that just by observing and being with what was in the garden, um, I often would get insights about what I was observing, but also about life in general. And so it seemed like, initially, like other times, that wisdom's there, it's in me, it's waiting to show up. But what I realized, and it's not just about me, it's for all of us. Wisdom always walks with all of us, because it is in us, it's in me. I'm never separate from it. And the only thing that has me not hear it, or it's not consciously there, is I'm thinking about other things. And so I don't have to go anywhere. Insights, revelations, things that occur to us happen everywhere and anywhere. But there's a difference of how it's like a pure, there's not any thinking involved in this. It's not an intellect-led new idea. And it has nothing to do with the circumstances of my garden, for example. Anywhere, and I look back through my life, it's occurred in lots of different situations. And it's not always about being in a calm state of mind, actually. It's been times where I've been really upset, really angry about things. I remember writing a letter to my parents in my 20s when they hadn't done something they said they were going to do, and I was stuck in the States. And I'm writing in this letter about all the things I wasn't happy about. And in the middle of that, I must have had a moment of not thinking, because what I realized, literally my pencil, it was a pencil I was writing, my pencil stopped on the pad. And I suddenly realized, hang on, all that stuff that I was not happy about comes from what we kind of family experience we'd had. But actually, all that had helped me become the person I had become and do the things I'd done. So how could I be upset? So, so literally in that middle of that angst, I still had a moment that completely flipped it on its head. And so I literally went dot, dot, dot. I know I just said some things there, but I want to give you the flip side of that, what I've just realized. and so even in the midst of angst and that, it's still there. We just need to have a gap for it to, and I don't know what creates that, but it's always there. And that's the thing that's really struck me. It's getting into there's a feel, I don't know if you know it, there's the feeling where we get into that state of mind where it's just really present and loving where we are and the experience we're having, and appreciating it, and that, for me, I get a sense of joy, a sense of wonder of just being alive and what I'm experiencing. So when being that present and in the feelings of that present state, so it's almost like a presence is it like, for me, like being present, but with that feeling of joy and appreciation and connection, then that's things that we've been worried about or wondering about or looking to find a solution for, something out of the blue, that is more likely to come in that situation, but in that environment and that way of being, but it's always there. And it's why people, when they're really struggling, they can have real moments of insight. There was a time back after the last financial crash, my business got really strangled because there wasn't a lot of work after the crash. Companies were cutting back on training and marketing, lots of costs for them. And I was exhausted. A lot had gone on in my life, and I was literally depleted. I had no energy. I was exhausted physically, emotionally, and intellectually. But part of me, all I knew I needed to do in that state of exhaustion was I just needed to be able to make sure I ate healthily every day, I got exercise every day, and I slept. That's the only thing I could do. And I didn't intellectually think that. It just occurred to me. And that went on for like 6 weeks. I was walking the long walk of Windsor Castle, where the Queen lives in the UK, in Windsor. It's like 2.5 miles there and back. Even one day through like a 5-6 inch snowstorm that happened while I was out there. It was nothing on the ground, and then 5 or 6 inches when I got back. And again, even over that period, I just woke up one day feeling better. And again, that's my wisdom. That's my wisdom that was there, even in a tough place. And for me, that's really, once we get to realize that and see it and experience it, it's like having the experience of knowing this is fact, this is real. And there's a pattern, there's a reason why these different things show up and how we may call them different things. Whether it's a hunch, a gut feel, an insight, a revelation, just a thought occurring. It's wisdom. And it has a very different feeling to a thought coming from my mind, my personal mind, my ego.
I wonder, the question occurs to me is, as wisdom is always walking with us, I wonder what gets in the way of us really recognizing that in moment to moment. What keeps us from spending more time recognizing that wisdom always walks with us?
I think, first of all, for myself, I had no was going to say blueprint, but no way of explaining it that made sense of what it was. And it all seemed like different things, called by different names, showed up in different circumstances. There was no pattern to it. And so it's only been, I mean, I learned to trust it, but I didn't understand what it was and the significance of it. And then from that, how to maximize the access to it. So through exploring principles and getting, ever deepening experience with them and connection, then everything makes sense. It's like everything slots into place. And it's not a mystery anymore. It's like, people, I had no clue about people when I was a teenager and early 20s, no clue. Couldn't figure out how they saw life so differently. But now, what anybody does, whatever anyone says or what they're doing, it all makes sense. There's a logic to it. And there's a logical connection to a deeper aspect of life as well that is it's brought and brings a greater sense of peace and calm, even when things are going crazy. There's a reason for this, or I can see why. I can often spot what the part I'm playing in it more as well. But people are always doing the best they know how in that moment. That alone makes such a big difference. It's given me a lot more compassion for people. So I know I used to struggle and get a lot more upset than I do. It's not about being perfect and not having less than optimal feelings. We're human beings. That's part of life. But we can not make them worse and have them pass like a rain cloud or a storm cloud. The sun's always there behind it. Even when we're in the middle of that thunder and lightning and the torrential rain, and it passes and it comes out again. And that's like the way I kind of see feelings and upset moods and darker ways of seeing things, and how everybody does. But most people are living in reaction to out there being the blame for what they're experiencing. So it's almost like getting it's like getting a handbook for how we function. You get a new car, you get the driver's handbook. They understand ever increasingly complex machines that we drive these days. And it's like now there's a very simple handbook that I understand how I function. And then in far more deeper depths of dimensions of life and everybody else, even if they're not aware of it. But I do know how a difference it's made to my life, and then also my clients and my friends, when they start to see this, the difference it makes.
One of my favorite quotes about what you're talking about is learning how your mind works is the fastest accelerator to living a wonderful life. Because when you really know how your car works or your laptop works, you can do so much more stuff with it. Or how your iPhone works, it just becomes an amazing experience. Yeah.
And it's for us, it's interesting. We're very complex and there's way more to us, but actually once we get to see it, it's very simple.
Yeah. I'd like to ask you more about that. Given that you work with incredible companies and individuals all around the world, I wonder if you have some case studies you'd be willing to share about the implications and impacts about understanding how your mind works in work, business, life, relationships.
So I didn't quite hear that correctly. So
Okay.
you're saying the
implications and impacts in case studies and people learning how their mind works and on the impacts of that on their lives, their business, their leadership in the day-to-day world.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different ways it's helped people.
Well, like
I mean,
yeah, case study, more specifically, case studies of people you've worked with and things you've seen on the field.
yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
thinking
Ah,
of
okay.
people like that. I mean, there's the COO, no, head of control for one of the divisions of BP I worked with. Um, and he was very intellectual and very busy-minded. Um, and he could never understand why his people didn't tell him what was going on. He felt like he was always having to second guess. And he was very stressed. He was always he couldn't not think about work when he was at home. He's just always in it. And um, and he that division, I mean, he had like 600 people on an open floor, planned floor, big ones you can imagine, with meeting rooms around the outside of the floor. And he would, very smart guy. You don't get up to that level without being a smart guy, and very smart. He would turned out he would go from into work early, and he'd plan his day, and then he'd go into his first meeting. He had like meeting after meeting during the days, and he would be listening to the meeting, and then modifying his plan for the day that he'd already made, and then also thinking about the next meeting he was going into during the meeting. And then, because he like, come on, didn't think he had to listen that carefully, and then he would walk. He'd leave that meeting and go across the floor to another meeting, and he would complain that people never came to him. They never approached him. They never told him what was going on. He said, "I don't know half of what's going on," and he'd be thinking about that, and then thinking about the meeting he'd come out of, and the meeting he's going into next, and then he'd go into that meeting, and he repeated this throughout the day, and over a number of sessions of sharing this of how we create our experience and how our minds work in this broader, deeper way, he started to slow down. He started to be more relaxed, and he wasn't as busy-minded back at home, he would say. Then he came in one day, and the next one of the sessions, he said, "I don't know what's happened." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "They've all changed." I said, "What do you mean they've all changed?" He says, "Well, they're coming to me now, and they're telling me what's going on and what needs to change, and how I need to help them." He says, "I don't know what's happened, but they're like different people." And and so I said, "Oh, that's really interesting." I said, "Well, are you seeing things any differently? Has anything changed for you?" And he stopped, and he kind of looked really, huh? Didn't quite get what I was asking. And he didn't get to anything specific or any insightful thoughts around that before the end of that session. And we had another one the following week. Anyway, so he came into the one the following week, and he got what had changed. Is, oh my God, I realize now it's not them that's changed, it's me that's changed. I am not as distracted wherever I am anymore. I used to go down with my head down. I wasn't even looking at people. There's no wonder they didn't come to me. So now I see them. I must be more approachable. They're now coming to me. He says, I somehow got, it's like my thinking has slowed down. I have gaps now. And he was part of a big global project for that part of the BP company. And they had 4 global companies. He was head of one of the groups. And they were, when I first started working, he was concerned that they even get it finished in time. And over that period of 3 or 4 months, they ended up being the first team to get finished globally. And he said that would have been impossible before. I mean, he just saw everything change just by having that kind of insights and understanding how we are creating great experiences or getting in the way of a lot of experiences. So that was a pretty big one.
That's really cool.
I worked with a general counsel, legal general counsel in a plastics company in Europe, in Copenhagen. And she was a new GM at this company. Half the people were new. They were going through a lot of change. And so I was then working with her and her lawyers, her team of lawyers. And they were really skeptical. I mean, they told me they were really skeptical, didn't think it was going to make any difference at all. But what they were able to find was they ended up having to move offices to Vienna from Copenhagen. So we went through massive transformations. But these lawyers in the end, they started being able to really listen to each other. And so then the knock-on effect with their clients, really being able to listen to their clients. The senior lawyer came in proudly one day, reported he was one of those guys that wear a jacket, always with a tie. And he came in without a jacket. His tie was undone. And he was saying, I don't even wear a tie when I go and see my clients anymore. He says, I found it helps them feel more relaxed. And when we're more relaxed, and we have a better conversation. They would really, again, be able to listen and come up with collective ideas and solutions for things that they didn't think were possible. And they retained everybody. Everyone was retained through that transition down into Vienna. No one wanted to leave. People moved. So again, and then we end up working. They said we need to work with the accounting department because we're having real headbutts around budgets and stuff. So we end up doing work with that other group as well. Again, that then they got all on the same page and transformed that complete way of working, and they made massive savings as a result of being able to collaborate better and really understand what they were trying to do. Yeah.
That's really cool. Thanks for sharing. And how cool is that what I love about your stories and about change and impact is it's not like the people that are being impacted learn a new tool or a trick or a technique that they could apply, and that was like the magic bullet, because I don't think there is one. But it's a simple recognition of their wisdom and their innate capacity for insight that opens all the doors. It's like finding the master key almost, and the doors, and you realize the doors, like, they weren't locked, you just didn't have the right key to it, or it wasn't as difficult. I'd like for you to share one more story, because I know you've also worked with England rugby, right? Or a former player from the rugby team. I know you also worked with a former player from the rugby team for England.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'd love for you to share that story.
Sure. So this actually came out of what led to my book. So I had a couple of clients who wanted to do a workshop with some of their clients on at a golf course and then go and play golf, because we played golf before, and they were saying how it helped their golf game. And so I started doing some talks called Success as a Mind Game, and I was asked to do a talk ahead of a charity event, and Tim Stimson was one of the speakers. He was a guest speaker there. So he was an international. He used to play rugby union World Cup level for England. Very well-known individual, and did a lot of charity work himself. Super guy. So he was a very well-known people if you're into the sports like that. So I'm giving this talk to a whole room of people for this charity game, and he sat to my left, and I can see him out of my eye as I'm sharing some of things, not as explicitly about the principles, but around state of mind and the impact and how it relates to golf and how to help be more in the moment and be clear, which then helps your game. And all I could see him was like, he was like staring at me the whole time. I'd engage with him a couple of times. I'd engage with people. So I knew he was really listening. He was listening to every word I said and was looking, and like, he was almost giving me an inquisition silently and just really analyzing, assessing what I was saying. And then he didn't say anything before the game. So we had the golf event, and afterwards, after dinner, he came and made a beeline for me and started grilling me about all this. And he says, this is amazing. He says, you're not just speaking this, are you? Like, this. This isn't just a talk. And I said, no, this is what I take into my clients. So he then, we arranged to go and play golf one day. So we went and I ended up having a game of golf with him at my club, and talked around state of mind and how it functions and relevant to golf, and then relevant to life and relevant to work. And he said, I wish I'd known this when I was playing rugby for England still. So there's anything like this. This would have made so much difference. And like he says, I can see how other people, some of the other guys, are able to do this and be in this way of playing in the flow without thinking too much. I can see it, but I didn't understand it. And so he could see, he said, if we'd all been able to get this, and he got some big hits over that game of golf as well. So, and then later he would come to some of my golf events and give talks as well. So I ended up running golf events around this, somewhat mixed with some experiential stuff, but mainly around state of mind. And that's how my book came out about originally. I mean, it's like in my early understandings of principles, but it was how I shared it then, and the impact and people, because it helped people. Here's one of the other great things around why I liked about it initially, and still holds true. If I share with somebody and it's about they've got something going on at home, or with their partner, or something in business, wherever they've got a problem, or they've got something that's bothering them, or they don't know how to find a solution, or when they started to see how this works, it helped them in every facet of their life. So, for example, I could help people in work, but it helped them in their home life or in their sports, and whether it's darts or skiing or whatever they did. In their interactions with clients, I even had a lady who said she finally realized something her mother had been trying to get her to see for 30 years, and how to not be frustrated with housework. She said, now I get it. And it's like such a different experience. So, and so there's not why I loved it about with golf, but anything, you can work in work, but then it'll help them in golf, or work around the golf, but then it'll help them work. Because and in playing, there's no need to be something different or get into a different state of mind going into a different situation. It's all the same.
Brilliant. What a wonderful story. And thank you for all the insights. So recognizing that we're coming up on time, I'd like to ask you, if you were to give a gift to the people listening, it could be an insight, a knowing, or anything you want. What gift would you give to the world or to people listening if you could give any gift?
Um, I guess it's the same thing. If I can help someone just get a glimmer, even just a sense of something that in what I'm sharing, and they get that this isn't just talking, this is being lived, and they feel different. If I could gift people that feeling of something's different here, life doesn't have to be as difficult. There's a possibility for a richer, easier, more meaningful life, that where we can be even more effective, and um, and it doesn't have to be difficult. If I could give that, if that's my get, that's I guess that's my goal whenever I talk to people now, is to help them. How can they feel something, sense something, hear something that resonates, or they feel the difference. They feel possibility. It's not just, it's not a model, it's not a description, it's something that starts with a feeling. And if people can get that feeling and then get some curiosity, that's all they need. Take some steps and explore more. So there's lots of ways to explore it. Lots of books out there. Lots, it's not just a few people. There's lots of us out there. It doesn't even have to be working with me, or any way people can start feeding that curiosity, and how can I deepen this feeling and know where it's coming from in everyday life. That would be
That would
that's
be pretty cool.
yeah.
Cool. I'll in the description I'll put a link to 3P resources, and people can, if they're curious, they can get to know more. And so I just want to give my gratitude to you for your time and your energy and your being and sharing your wonderful and insightful stories with us today. How cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. Um,
And I
Pleasure.
am, yeah. And I'm also curious about golf. So I'd love it if you could take me on to the driving range one day. And I want to know more about how to state of mind in golf. I think that would be a great experience.
Yeah, golf is a mirror for life, and yeah, I'd love to have that experience with you. Look forward to that.
Cool. So for everybody listening, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.